Well, I think we have our answer. The Venezuelans have stood up alongside the Chinese, the Russians, and the Cubans. And in a mass exercise along the Colombian border, have shown that they are not going to be the latest victim of humanitarian aid. Now, in this article from 2 October, off of Infodefensa, I'm going to read for you, while showing pictures on the right, all of the different assets that are now reportedly on the ground in Venezuela, ready to repel any humanitarian aid force that might decide to come across the Caribbean Sea. Some 100,000 troops, as well as Chinese, Cuban, and Russian soldiers, combined strategic operation carried out along the 2,200-kilometer border between Colombia and Venezuela. All right, we will start here. Official images disseminated showed, among others, the missile S-125 Pechora M2 short range and the Buck M2E, pardon me. This was, of course, the missile that, quote-unquote, accidentally shot down that civilian airliner a few years back over in Russia. Military aviation deployed Lockheed Martin fighter jets F-16A and B. They do absolutely have these. They were at one time our ally, and this is what makes this so disgusting. Block 15 Fighting Falcon and the Sukhoi Su-30 Mark IIs. So they have those as well. Now remember, they also have the Chinese there, the Russians there, the Cubans there, so it isn't completely up to the Venezuelan military all by themselves. They also have, and we covered this very recently, these KW light attack jets. And of course, we've covered extensively this Super Tucano, the Embraer, the Brazilian-made one. They also have these. These are primarily heavy transports, but they do carry 50 caliber machine guns out the door. And they also have this, which a lot of folks aren't familiar with. It's the Mi-27 Hind D. It's a very heavy-duty Russian attack helicopter. These things are basically flying tanks. They also have a version of what we would call an Apache. This is a Mi-35 M2, and so these are on the ground and took part in this mass military exercise in Venezuela. Over 100,000 troops took part in this from 4 countries. So in case anybody thinks this is some little backwater, Venezuela is anything but. And these, of course, are the Igla S. They have over 5,000 of these, and have had for a long time. Anti-aircraft, light infantry, anti-aircraft weapons. Also, and I'm sorry if I seem like I'm jumping around here, there are a lot of different things going on. They do have some fairly advanced naval assets. Now, I know there's going to be folks come to the video and say, well, the U.S. has this, that, and the other. That's fine. You're absolutely right. But mark my words, if this goes down anytime between now and the elections, you can kiss the midterms goodbye. And one thing about South American countries that a lot of people don't get is that as much as they have problems with each other, they are all anti-imperialist. I mean, seriously anti-imperialist. And they have the Russians on their side. And more importantly, they have Russian money on their side. They have Chinese. They have a major investment down there. They're not going to let the U.S. just go in there with quote-unquote humanitarian aid and take that place back over. It's just not going to happen that way. And with this thing in Brazil, and I'm going to try to bring up Google Earth while I'm talking to you about this, could swing the election. You see, they're reporting now, and they're not telling you the entire story, that this guy Bolsonaro's in the lead. Well, yeah, in the first round, he's going to be, because they're splitting the vote of the Workers' Party 4 ways. Unless Bolsonaro can somehow pull off more than 50% of the vote in the first round, which is highly unlikely. In the second round of voting, when it's the final two, the top two, Haddad is going to get all of those other candidates' voters because they're all center and center left. And if there's some kind of fool's errand notion that there's going to be some kind of a launch of military assets, and oh, by the way, let me be very clear, Puerto Rico is not attacking Venezuela. The governor of Puerto Rico has basically stated that he's going to allow the event, the U.S.-led, the current leadership in Washington's event, to be staged from Puerto Rico. So for all those comments out there like, oh, don't they have infrastructure problem? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They have the airstrips. They still have all the basic military infrastructure they need to stage from Puerto Rico. That's what he was saying. There is a giant nightmare waiting down here in Venezuela. And I'll tell you what, if Haddad wins that election and the Venezuelans get the Brazilians on their side, and I promise you this, when this new guy takes over in Mexico, AMLO, Lopez Obrador, he's not going to stand by the U.S. in any kind of an event like this. So we can kiss them goodbye. I'm sure the Canadians are going to have a hell of a lot of questions about this. And everything from Mexico all the way through here, any kind of influence the U.S. had would be over day one of an invasion like this. And they would unite. All of Central, all of Latin America. The Colombians would be in an impossible position. A completely impossible position, especially, like I said, the Russians and the Chinese would love nothing more than to give us a bloody nose in our backyard over this bullshit. As much crap and garbage as we've done over there with Israel, they would love nothing more than to do this. To start a shooting war this far away from the Panama Canal. What do you think is going to happen to the stock market? What do you think is going to happen to gas prices? What do you think is going to happen to everything's prices? If there is a shooting war, a straight out shooting war, that close to the Panama Canal. And the Fourth Fleet, the fleet in charge of this area of operation, has basically a glorified Coast Guard police patrol force down here. They don't have the assets. We would have to pull major assets, and those assets would have to traverse unfriendly waters to get there. I mean, they would have to come through, well, they'd have to go by Cuba. Over here, Honduras and Nicaragua, that's pretty much a done deal. They're not going to support the United States. They could come around this way, I suppose, and come through Puerto Rico over here, but I'm telling you what, if they want to get into a shooting war, oh, and by the way, let's see if I can find that. Brazil has stepped up activities as well. So I think they're foreseeing it. That there's going to be some kind of a shooting war, some kind of a problem down there. And this is off Diálogo Americas. It's just amazing to me this is all going on and still our mainstream media is talking about this irrelevant nonsense with the Supreme Court. Completely, totally meaningless. Whatever side you're on, it's meaningless. Once this starts, forget it. We will be facing a force like we haven't faced in a very, very long time. And it was some months ago, the Florida Maquis reported on this change, this very odd change in the training doctrine that was coming out of the military, stating that they were no longer going to be training forces to deal with urban warfare or asymmetric warfare. They were going to start training them to deal with what they call peer-to-peer conflicts, standing up against other top-notch militaries. that have assets like this. And there's always been this speculation about what was or what was not in Venezuela. Well, now we know that we have, and this picture right here tells the whole story. They used to be our ally. These people helped us. These people were our friends. And we allowed big business to go down there and treat these people like shit. The same big business that treats our people here in this country like shit. The crap that big oil has done over and over and over again. We just allowed it to go on to a tiny little country. Treat them like slaves. If you want to do yourself a favor, and you want to talk about the Venezuelan economic crisis, go to Google. Click on the tools part if you have a computer, and set your search parameters for 2000 to 2012, and type in Venezuelan economic crisis. What will come up is the Venezuelan economic crisis of the 80s and 90s, when supposedly U.S.-friendly people were in charge, and they had 80% people living under the poverty level, when 20,000 people died just because of a rainstorm. That was the economic crisis. That was the reason for Chavez. And that there are as many people as there are throwing a temper tantrum now and leaving Venezuela has to do with the huge standard of living increase that's happened down here. And how the U.S. certain group of people, tribe we've talked about before, Candymen, haven't gotten their way. Now they want to force the U.S. to use military force to get it back. If we do this, a lot of people are going to start to take stock, so to speak, of decisions. And I'm just going to leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.